This NBA Cup Semifinal Picks Betting Picks edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rebet, a new sportsbook available in 45 states. Download the Rebet app in your app store and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Everyone to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Special episode here to cover the NBA Cup semifinal games happening on Saturday in Las Vegas, down to the final four teams for the NBA Cup. We'll find out who will be playing for the second banner of the NBA Cup on Tuesday night. I said earlier this week we would fit this episode in some time, whether it was going to be Friday night or Saturday morning. I thought it'd be fitting, let's get it done on Friday night, get the pod out overnight. So if people want to listen to it, they can get to it before the games do start on Saturday. But joining me here to help me break down the two semifinal games happening on Saturday, you guys know him as the voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, the WNBA Gambling Podcast, the MLB Gambling Podcast, and of course here on the NBA Gambling Podcast is Scott Sudi Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Hey, doing okay. Not the best day in the NBA for Friday for me. Lost the lock and dog. Pretty annoying for the Dogs. Zubac missed a free throw with 1 second left, and I ended up having Clippers first half money line. They lost by 1, which is not ideal. And then Embiid, I had first quarter minus 5.5. Closed at 7.5. Went 1 of 5 from the floor. Got injured in the second quarter. Missed the rest of the game anyway. What else is new? But he played 9 minutes in the first quarter. So if I told you Embiid needed 3 baskets or even a couple free throws to get there, you'd probably like your chances. Didn't happen, though. He went 1 of 5.
Yeah, of course he did. And then I got an alert, like everybody did, that hurt his little face and was not able to return to, I think, nobody shocked there. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, this guy just needs to hang it up. Just call it a career, just, fade off into the sunset or whatever the case might be. But we are here for the two NBA Cup games happening on Saturday. We have first one, I believe, is the Hawks and the Bucks, the Eastern Conference one, and then it will be the Rockets and the Thunder in the nightcap. So we'll cover both of those games here. Scott, before we do get into it here, let me just remind everybody to make sure to download the SGPN app. It's completely free, and you have access to all of our shows and all of our picks pages, all in one convenient app. And it's free wherever you do get your app. So do us a favor, whether you have the App Store or the Google Play Store, just go and download the SGPN app. Would definitely appreciate it if you guys could do that for us. All right, Scott, let's get into it here, man. We'll try to keep this nice and tidy and consumable in a manner of time where people can get to it before the games here. But we'll start here with the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks. Currently, as it stands, the Bucks are a 4.5-point favorite in this game with a total of 228.5. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams here, relatively healthy. No significant injuries either way. I know we had some questionable tags on guys for the Atlanta Hawks in the quarterfinal games against the New York Knicks, but they ended up having DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson as well. I think Bogdanovich ended up playing in that game as well. But nothing of significance right now as I look at the injury report. Bogdanovich is probable, and that is pretty much it. For the Milwaukee side of things, also another very healthy squad. Probable tags on all 3 guys on their injury report with Giannis, Marjon Beauchamp, and Chris Middleton as well. Scott, Bucks laying 4.5 points in this game with a total of 228.5. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think for this one, we saw them face off about a week or two ago. Atlanta did win comfortably, as Atlanta was able to kind of coast from start to finish. They've been one of the hottest teams in the league. They look good against the Knicks in the second half. Did win the game by 15 in Milwaukee back on the fourth. So, point is, Atlanta's been playing good ball, and I do think they can look sharp once again. Milwaukee did win, but they barely got by Orlando, who was missing their top two players, which is a bit concerning for me. I think I'm going to go with Atlanta. Seems pretty public. I think most people will be on Atlanta in this game, but I do think they're undervalued. I thought they beat a pretty good Knicks team in the second half handily, and it seemed like Atlanta is starting to figure out the lineups, they're starting to figure out the rotations, and really just the chemistry with this team. But Jalen Johnson's been great. Trey's been great facilitating, and you're looking at DeAndre Hunter, who's been great for the last week or two. I like the Hawks. They're healthy for once, and they look pretty good. Give me the Hawks to keep this game at least very competitive, maybe winning outright. Give me Atlanta plus 4.5.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's the I guess the public side, or the side that people are picking here. And rightfully so. I think this Atlanta team has been, I think I mentioned this when you and I did the pod. I think they're starting being a little bit undervalued here. Just because how great they've been on the defensive side of the basketball, right? I think the front office did a really good job of surrounding Trey Young with guys that can play defense. More so bringing in Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson can play defense, guys that can rebound with Clint Capella. They have a Kongwu coming off of the bench for this team. So it's a nice collective effort for this Atlanta Hawks team. And then meanwhile, with the Bucks, right? Those are the two teams that we talked about at the beginning of the season that were just struggling out of the gate was the Sixers and the Bucks. And the Bucks seem like they have figured it out, especially with the chemistry with Giannis and Dame. I know last season, I'm not going to take a lot away from Dame because it was a transition year after all the years he spent with Portland. It's a brand new organization, brand new city, and all that. But it seems like him and Giannis are starting to click on the offensive side, and also getting Chris Middleton back as well. I know he's not playing a whole heck of a lot of minutes, but it just, you can see how Giannis and Chris Middleton have played together for so many years, that instant chemistry has still been there for those two guys. So it's a breath of fresh air for this Milwaukee Bucks team. I'll lay it here with the Bucks. I feel like the Hawks are the public side here with things. I think Giannis will come out and have another dominating performance. I think they'll make these adjustments before the game. The part that does make me nervous is Doc Rivers. Is he going to be able to make in-game adjustments? And I think we've talked about this a lot on the pod as well, that he's not the greatest guy or coach, I should say, to make those halftime and in-game adjustments. But I do think that with this team being healthy now, the way that Damian Lillard is playing for this team as well, I think the Bucks do get the job done here, and they do get to the finals here. So I'll lay it here -4.5. I think the more favorite plays, I think you might just agree with this as well, Scott. I think the unders might be the look here for me for both games, at least. And I really do like your here for this game as well. 228.5 is the number. We've seen the physicality be up, and the refs are letting them play a little bit, right? We're seeing those 90s type of atmosphere in these type of in these quarterfinal games. At least we saw not a lot of free throws being shot. So I'm expecting the same here in the semifinal game. I do like the under 228.5 here, Scott.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough to actually go with an over when you watch those games unfold a couple days ago, when every game, besides the Bucks game, coincidentally, which did have a pretty low total, every game went under by a wide margin. It really wasn't that close. I think you're going to get a pretty low scoring pair of games here. Spoiler, though, for the next game. Milwaukee and Atlanta, I get why the total's been bet up, because both teams can score points in bunches. But even the meeting that happened about a week or so ago still went under this number. So the line does feel high anyway. Atlanta defensively has found a certain gear. Don't think the odds makers have adjusted to it. Milwaukee defensively has been better too. Stop playing Connaughton. They've been playing a lot more of AJ Green, who's been playing pretty well defensively on the wing. Middleton gives you some length too. Pretty decent defender. I'll go with the under as well. Think it'll get somewhere in the 210s maybe, but 228.5, bit too high for me. I'll go with the under.
Yeah, I think that Knicks and that Hawks quarterfinal game, with the totals around, I think it closed like 238, 230.5, and they didn't get even close to that number. Finished with 208 points in that game. So, yeah, agree about the under here. Player props, anything you're looking at?
Middleton assists have been really good, which is kind of a bit of a slippery slope because the minutes are always a bit of an uncertainty. But he hasn't really been shooting at all. So Middleton's points have been non-existent. I think he actually had 0 in the game against Orlando. But Middleton has been playing pretty well when it comes to his actual assists recently since coming back off of injury. And to read off the actual assists in the last couple games, just for reference here, Middleton has played 3 games since coming back from injury. 8 assists against Orlando in 20 minutes, 6 assists against the Nets in 20 minutes, and 5 against Boston in 23 minutes. So only 20 minutes, then maybe that ramps up a bit, but then playing 3 games already. But he's been walking into basically 5 or 6 plus in every game. His prop last game was 3.5. Like,
Wow.
that's way too low. I think he's in line for a good game here. I don't see any props on him yet because he's a game time decision. But if it's 3.5 again, I'll take it.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off of that. I mean, you read off the numbers there. I think that makes a lot of sense there for Chris Middleton. Dyson Daniel intrigues me in some way, whether it's defensive stats. I mean, those numbers are now, going to be around 2.5 for his defensive numbers. Trying to see if they haven't posted yet. Yeah, the steals are at 2.5 for him. Even money for him to get 3+. I know a lot of people will pivot to Giannis. I think the rebounds would be a good look here for Giannis in this game, over 11.5. You mentioned the Chris Middleton one. I do like that. Jalen Johnson has been absolutely fantastic as well. We've talked about him a lot on this podcast as well. Bobby Portis was really good as well in that Orlando game. He had 22 points, 10 rebounds. He's put together back-to-back 20-plus point games for the Milwaukee Bucks. And looking at this minutes increase as well, and I think that maybe something Doc Rivers recognizes with Bobby Portis being out there. He's played 31 minutes at minimum in the last 2 games, scored 23 and 22. Very efficient as well, 18 of 21 from the floor over the last 2 games for Bobby Portis as well. He's 7 of 8 from beyond the arc there as well. So I think that that's been a breath of fresh air to have how well Bobby Portis has been playing in this game. We'll be curious to see what his points prop is there right now. 13.5 is the number. Yeah, I would still lean towards the over on Bobby Portis for that prop. Anything else you like in this game?
I'm kind of tempted by DeAndre Hunter threes again, which I did like in that Knicks game. Didn't attempt many, but he did go over. I think he went 4 or 5 from 3 in that game. He's been great. Really no way around it. I just look at the actual points for Hunter recently. It is at 18.5. He's had at least 20 in 5 straight games, at least 20 in 7 of the last 8. The last game against Milwaukee, also at 20 in that one. If you want to go for his threes, it's at 2.5. He has gone under, though, in each of the last 4 against Milwaukee. Had 2 against the Bucks in the last game, but he went 2 of 7. So he attempted a lot of them, just only made 2. But I think that DeAndre Hunter's got value because he's been really good. And I do think that he can find ways to contribute in this game, not even just for the actual points. He had 5 rebounds in the last game against Milwaukee, and I think maybe he can rebound. He hasn't really done a great job rebounding recently, though, besides that last game against Milwaukee. But I'm just saying DeAndre Hunter could be interesting to maybe drop 20 in this game, so just keep an eye out for that.
One more mention here, Jalen Johnson rebounds over 9.5. He's had double-digit rebounds in 3 straight games. 13 in that game we just talked about against the Bucks back on December 4th. He had 10 against the Lakers, and the last game, that quarterfinal game against the Knicks, he also had 15 rebounds in that game. His assists have also kind of been sneaky as well. It'll be interesting to see what that number is at for Jalen Johnson. It's at 5.5 for him. He's had 2 straight games of 7 assists each. He had 9 against the Hornets, and he had 5 in that game against the Milwaukee Bucks. So if you're able to maybe find a juiced 4.5, if you want to put that in your same game parlay, I wouldn't be able to talk you off of that. One more note I'll mention here. Saw this on Twitter. Darvin Ham undefeated in NBA Cup games as either a head coach or an assistant coach. I thought that was pretty funny to see. Anything else for this game, Scott?
Actually, yeah. As I was looking at pros for Hunter, I actually found a decent fade option. Coincidentally, the under 5.5 rebounds and assists did go over against Milwaukee in the last game.
Yeah,
as he had 5 and 2 for a total of 7, but he had gone under 5 in the previous 3 meetings. And even recently, he's not really facilitating because, of course, Trade gets most of the assists, so does Jalen Johnson. But going through the actual rebounds and assists for Hunter in the last couple games, he's gone under this number in 3 straight. He's gone under this number in 5 of the last 6, and I think that 5.5 might be a bit too high. Minus 125 on the under. I think there's some value there.
All right. Before we get to the Western Conference semifinal game for the NBA Cup, let me tell everyone about our good old friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has actually one of the biggest menus for all sports, whether it is the NBA, NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NASCAR. They have a ton. And You can win up to 1000x with underdog streaks as well. I was actually talking to one of our good listeners, Eric, and he's mentioning how he's been doing these underdog streaks, and they give you these cash out options after a certain amount once you get on these streaks here. So I think that might be something that maybe we start doing here on the NBA pod as part of the Underdog Fantasy segment there. So we'll keep that in mind. But they're also making it easier to win with Profit Boost and Give Me Pick'ems as well. So sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to 1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rebet. Rebet is a new social sportsbook available in 45 states. There are plenty of betting opportunities that are available on Rebet. Easy to use and great for people in states where traditional sportsbook may be restricted. Download Rebet in the App Store and use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. That's Rebet, promo code SGPN. All right, the second game on the schedule for the semifinal games is going to be the Houston Rockets. They are taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thunder laying 5.5 points in this game with a total of 213.5. Injury report, Dylan Brooks is officially questionable. He is dealing with an illness. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, the usual suspects are out, more so with Chet Holmgren, as he continues to miss time with I believe it's a hip injury for Chet Holmgren. But nonetheless, here, the Thunder laying 5.5 against the Rockets. Here, Scott, what are your thoughts on this Western Conference semifinal matchup?
So even though Houston, your team, did finally slay their dragon, they were able to beat the Warriors after losing 15 straight.
Pop the champagne.
My main takeaway from that game as I was watching it was, regardless of who won, Oklahoma City was going to beat the brakes off whoever won that game. That was my main takeaway as the game unfolded. I think Oklahoma State's going to dominate. Houston, the issue I have, even though they won, defensively they're great. I'm really not sold on their offense. Just watching possession by possession, they don't really have a go-to guy. Now, Şengün ended up with a monster game. Didn't really do much early in the fourth quarter, then had a couple shots late. Jalen Green was invisible for most of the tournament. Van Vliet was useless for most of the game. Had a big three, though, in the corner, which definitely helped Houston come back. But I thought Jabari Smith looked good. But it seemed like both teams, the Warriors and the Rockets, were just chucking up brick after brick on terrible offensive set after terrible offensive set. And Oklahoma City got whatever they wanted against Dallas. And now I know PJ Washington didn't play, but the point is Shea had 39. He's the best player on the court by a wide margin. Hardenstein's been great as well with this team. And I think Houston might struggle with the boards with Hardenstein being there. I just think Houston's going to have to rely on a couple of unproven commodities, because when you're looking at the amount of big games this core has played in together, not many.
Yeah.
They missed the play-in last year. They won the game against the Warriors in the quarters, but they looked pretty underwhelming most of the way through. Oklahoma City was in the conference semis last year. They probably should have beaten Dallas. That series was close throughout, and we saw how good they looked against Dallas in, I guess, the rematch, quote-unquote, in the quarters. I think Oklahoma City might bury this team, because I don't know if Houston's going to score.
How dare you, sir?
I think you're going to agree with me.
No, I do agree with you with what you're saying. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Rockets have been in these trade rumors to get a star player in those type of situations, right? I know they've been linked to Jimmy Butler or, whatever the case might be, just trying to get someone when it comes down to that clutch time that can provide consistent scoring in that time to propel them to even more victories. I think they've done a great job thus far this season, but I don't think they've been in a lot of situations where they've been in those clutch moments this season, and even going back to last season. I think they were very fortunate to get to the stage, even with one of the, I guess, worst call that we've seen, with a foul that was called 85 feet away from the basket.
It's a terrible call.
But I agree with a lot of what you're saying, right? And we've talked a lot about this Oklahoma City Thunder team, is that how great they are defensively. And if you watch their games, and I've said this a lot, that anytime a player is attacking the basket, they have very active hands. And the impressive part about it is how well they strip away the basketball from these players that are trying to get to the basket without fouling. And that what's really propels them on the offensive side and pushing the basketball down the floor and getting easy baskets. But like you mentioned, Shea's just on a whole nother level in this game, that as far as being the best player in this game. I think you're also correct that Isaiah Hartenstein should prevent or will give problems to Şengün in this game defensively. I think if he's able to stay out of foul trouble, which I think we both believe that they will let these guys play, let's like it is a blatant foul. But that gives them that rim protection that we've talked about that they've needed for the past several seasons. And Hartenstein has been crushing his rebounding prop. And the market doesn't adjust to it. I know we'll talk about props here in a second, but yeah, I think this is the game where the Rockets do fall a little bit short. It's just they're just going to be outclassed in this game. And I know it's a semifinal game. The motivation's not a question, but I know this Rockets team did beat the Thunder, I think, last week on their home floor. So I guess if you want to add that, quote unquote, they want that revenge angle as well. But I don't think the motivation can be any higher for this Thunder and Rockets team in this matchup. So yeah, I'm with you. As much as I want the Rockets to win this game, I just think the Thunder are at a different class. I'll lay the points here as well with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think we both agree that this is probably going to be a game where we see it in the 190s, maybe 200s, low 200s. But with the offensive struggles that I think the Rockets will have in this game here, Scott, I think it does end up going under the total of 213.5.
Yeah, I mean, we saw both meetings already this season be pretty high-scoring battles, but it is a bit of a different atmosphere here.
Sure.
And it's going to be in a neutral, so I think it's going to be pretty ugly. I think that Houston in particular is going to struggle to actually get to 100 in this game. They only got to 91 in that last game, played Golden State earlier in the week. They got to 93, and Curry didn't play in that game. So I think, once again, Oklahoma City defensively, they've given up less than 110 in 4 straight, less than 107 in 3 of the last 4. They've just been really, really good. My concern about the full game under, though, is I do wonder if Houston defensively will be able to fully stop this Thunder offense, because Golden State gets pretty predictable when you're looking at Curry, and if he's not hitting his shots, who else do they have? Like, Wiggins didn't play. Healed fine, but they don't have many weapons. I think Oklahoma City does with the spacing, so I think I might prefer Houston team total under as opposed to full game under, because the number's pretty low. You might accidentally backdoor and over like Milwaukee and Orlando, where the game's a rock fight, but you just got enough points at the end with free throws, etc., to go over. So I think it probably goes under if I had to guess, but I think Houston will drag it down under themselves.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're correct. I do like the Rockets team total under. I think both Şengün and Jalen Green will struggle in this game. It's a great point that you also bring up, right? Neutral site. It's a new court, new backgrounds, new facility, obviously, that they're not used to seeing during the NBA season, for that matter. So I think that only helps the under in this game at 213.5. But I also do agree about the team total under for the Rockets in this matchup as well. Let's talk about some player props here, Scott. Anything that you do like?
Yeah, so for this one, I mean, Shea is Shea. I don't care how low the total is going to be. I think Shea's going to have a monster game. It is what it is. I think I'm on Jalen Green under. Like, I think I have to be. He's clearly taken a backseat to Şengün.
I was on the under in the Warriors game for him as well, but yeah,
it worked out
in this game.
He had the free throws at the end, but he just hasn't really done much. His points are at 16.5, which is a bit lower than I wanted. But even in the game they beat the Thunder in recently, he had 9 points.
Yeah.
In the 2 games this season, he's combined for 23 points. He's at less than 15 in both. I think 16.5 is too high. He's gone under this number in 5 of the last 6 meetings against Oklahoma City. I think it's I think it's a reasonably low number. I don't mind the under on that, because Green has kind of been a complete non-factor in this entire tournament.
11 career games against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's only got he scored more than 17 points in 3 games. He did have a 37-point game last season. And then early in his career, I think his rookie year, 21 points and 28 points. But outside of that, it's been a lot of 12, 14, 15, 11, 16. And like you mentioned, the 2 games this season, 14 and 9. So yeah,
Caruso's healthy. You have Williams, you have Shea. You have a lot of guys that can guard on the perimeter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing, right? That they have guys on the perimeter that can really slow down Jalen Green. I think that's why he also struggles against the Warriors as well. And that's why one of the reasons I did like Jalen Green under 19.5 in that Warriors game, because they do have guys that also can throw at Jalen Green. I think Kuminga in that game, if you're watching closely, he had Jalen Green in hell, because the length that Jonathan Kuminga has, he was really able to stay in front of Jalen Green and force some tough shots. But now you're going up against a very, very disciplined defensive team. Like you mentioned, they have the perimeter guys in Dort. You have Caruso coming off of the bench. I forgot to mention that I think another reason why we both like the under is both these teams are top 2 in defensive rating this season as well, right? OKC number 1, Rockets number 2 as well. So do like the under for Jalen Green. I'm going to continue taking the Isaiah Hartenstein over 11.5 rebounds. He's just been an absolute monster on the boards. I think if he does get in between the range of 27 to 30 minutes here, Scott, he'll get up and over this number. But you take a look at his last 5 games. He had 13 rebounds against this Rockets team in that game that we had talked about. He only had 5 rebounds in the game against Utah, but that was an absolute blowout where they didn't need him to play a whole like a lot of minutes. But the last 3 games, 16 against the Raptors, 12 against the Pelicans, and then he had 13 against the Dallas Mavericks. So right now that number is sitting at 11.5. And what I really do like about Isaiah Hartenstein as well, Scott, is that he does a great job of getting offensive rebounds as well and creating those second chance points. That really boosts his rebounding numbers there as well. I think that can continue in this game here. So that's another one I was looking at here. So Isaiah Hartenstein over 11.5 rebounds.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
What do you think about Şengün in this game? Because I think that, again, if he's able to stay out of foul trouble, Hartenstein, I think that he can give Şengün a real hard time in this game. I was looking at his points prop to go under as well, but I think it just makes sense if we both like, or at least I like both Şengün and Jalen Green to struggle in this game, that the Rockets team total under then just makes a whole heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I think Şengün's one of the only reliable guys they have right now, and I think that Hartenstein has the size to make life difficult for Şengün. Of course, he could also, showcase the variety, hit some mid-range shots. He's very crafty, as we all know. But he's also been a bit injured. Like, he was questionable entering that last game. He looked great, but I think that Hartenstein's size can give them some problems. So, yeah, I think he might be in, I don't want to say a world of hurt here, but I think that Şengün doesn't have the best matchup per se.
You did mention one player that has been actually playing well recently for the Rockets, Jabari Smith. I think that's a guy, if you want to take a look at his over on his points prop, it is at 11.5 in this game. He's actually done pretty well in his career against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's averaging close to 13 points per game. But you take a look at the last 5 meetings against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's had 20, 18, 16. Did have a game where he had 4 points, but then, or earlier this season had 4 points. And then the last matchup back on December 1st, he had 15 points and 14 rebounds in that game. I know he did a really good job in that quarterfinal game as well, scoring 15 for the Rockets. So if you do want to look at an over for a Rockets player, I think Jabari Smith Jr. would be the guy here for me. I'll dig a little bit more into Ben Thompson because I'm just waiting for him to take over at that point guard position because he's a guy that can play on both sides of the basketball, on the offense and defensive sides. I know he's also been working on a mid-range jump shot as well. So if he's able to develop a jump shot, you parlay that with his defensive abilities, the sky's the limit for Ben Thompson. But I do like Jabari Smith over 11.5 points here, Scott.
Yeah, so I can agree with you. I don't mind the threes.
All right. Anything else for this game?
No, not really. I think we kind of covered it.
All right. Before we do get over to our lock and dog and our Underdog Fantasy entry for the NBA Cup semifinal games, let me just tell everyone about our friends over at mybookie.ag. We're brought to you by mybookie.ag. MyBookie has been running on SGPN for years. Check out their new and improved website. It's great on mobile, plus props for every game and the live dealer casino. They even have a new early cash out option available on mybookie.ag. Head up to mybookie.ag, use our promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip they'll throw in for you as well. That's mybookie.ag. Make sure you use that promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's prop partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered back sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build a model for you. And now you can track props in the Rhythm app as well. NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, NBA. Rhythm honestly has it all. And if you're looking for a NBA prop for the semifinal games, the Rhythm model does actually like Brook Lopez to go up and over his number of 8.5 points in this game against the Atlanta Hawks. So they're predicting he has close to 12 points in this game. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Scott, let's get into our lock and dog, and then we'll put together our underdog fantasy entry for the NBA Cup semifinal games. I'll let you lead off. Where are you taking us for your lock and dog?
Yeah, so for the lock, might sound a bit dangerous based on line movement, but I think that it has gone a bit too high. I like the unders in these games in general, but I think that this Hawks total is too high at around 228.5. I'll go with the under. They faced off about a week and a half ago. Game landed 223 in Milwaukee. Now you're in a neutral. It's an afternoon game too. Weird start time, 1:30 local, which I think could be an issue. But I do think both teams defensively have found a certain gear. Milwaukee, once again, switched up some lineup stuff, and they've been able to hold opponents in check recently. Atlanta did a good job recently holding the Knicks to 100, held Milwaukee to 104 last week. I think it's a pretty good spot for the under in this one, not to mention single game elimination, which might result in a bit more, I'd say, tentativeness and maybe just a lack of calls like we saw in that fourth quarter of the Knicks game when the refs just let both teams kill each other.
Yep.
And that turned into an absolute war. So I like the under at 228.5. I'll go with that as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go with a same game parlay here. I am going to go with the Thunder, no offense, -5.5, parlayed with Hartenstein, 10+ rebounds, and that's available at +159 on FanDuel. I think Hartenstein's going to have a great game. He had 13 rebounds against them last meeting. He had 20+ rebounding chances. I think Houston's going to have a hard time actually stopping him on the boards. And Oklahoma City, I just think, is better than Houston offensively. And I think that they will not be, I'd say, intimidated by the moment. So give me the Thunder to cover the spread and give me Hartenstein 10+ rebounds. That's a +159.
I like it. All right. For my lock, I think it might just be the Rockets team total under. I know I like the full game under as well. I think I'll just go full game under 213.5. I think this is like a 105, 95, something in that range type of game. We both mentioned that we do expect the refs to let both games be physical, maybe a lack of whistles that are not going to be blatant fouls that be called here. But I do think, despite both games being higher scoring during the regular season, different circumstances, of course, the intensity will be up, new venue as well. So I do like the under 213.5 for Rockets and Thunder. For my dog, it may just kind of go against since I like the under in this game. It was either going to be a Hartenstein rebounding ladder or
I'm going to give you no resistance on that ladder if you want it.
Yeah, I think 14 plus is at +185. I think you start at 13 plus and then you work your way up. 13 plus +120, 14 plus +185, 15 plus +260. So all for the sake of the show, I'll go a little baby dog starting at 13 plus at +120 for Hartenstein. And then if you want to work your way up to 15, 16 rebounds, I think this is just going to be, again, like we mentioned, just ugly, maybe Brookfest, at least for the Rocket side of things, where Hartenstein can rack up the rebounds. Let's not forget, Hartenstein also used to play for the Rockets. He was involved in a trade where they let him go. So I don't want to say revenge angle, but you kind of want to stick it to your former team there. So Hartenstein rebounding ladder will be my dog for the semifinal games. All right, Scott, let's wrap it up here with an underdog fantasy entry for the games here. Again, guys, get over there, underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you have promo code NBA SGPN. First time deposit offer of up to 50% deposit offer, I should say, up to $1,000 for new account users. They also have great, profit boosts and things like that as well. So make your money with us on Saturday, and then you can use that on Sunday for the NFL action as well. So, again, come join us. We've had a lot of success on Underdog Fantasy. All right, Scott, where do we want to start here for our entry?
Well, you know where we're starting.
Hartenstein.
Yeah. I don't think we can really avoid that.
Yeah. So. All right, so he's at 11.5 rebounds. We'll go higher on that. We like anybody for Bucks and Hawks? Any players there?
I'm trying to think if I wanted to go for the Hunter lower on his RA or not. I mean, do we want to consider, do we think Trey is a monster game? We didn't really talk much about Giannis, by the way. Do we think Giannis is a monster game?
I think so. I think that he's out to, I don't want to say prove a point, but I do believe that they beat the Hawks. His points are not, it's been moving up a lot throughout the day here. It's
That's
up to
why I don't know if I want
33
to
and a
take it
half.
anymore, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, I think rebounds may be a look at 11 and a half, or I
Well,
wish they had
you
that
know what?
Middleton
I,
assist.
I think I think that you're going to end up seeing the Hawks keep this game competitive personally.
Sure.
So I think I might be gravitating towards Jalen Johnson because he's been really just stuffing the stat sheet for the last couple weeks at this point.
Yeah.
Faced off against Milwaukee once again about a week or two ago. He had 23, 13, and 5. Like, he had a monster game against this team,
Yeah.
and he can find his rebounds and assists at 14 and a half. I think that's too low. He had, once again, 18 against the Bucks about a week and a half ago. I'll go with Jalen Johnson on his higher rebounds and assists if they
So
have.
they only have PRA at 33 and a half right now.
I'll take that anyway. That's fine.
All right, we'll go higher on that. All right, so we got Hartenstein in there. We got Jalen Johnson in there. Do we want to go Jalen Green under or lower, I should say?
Sure, that's fine.
All right, we'll do that. Jalen Green. It's at 17 and a half, so hope it keeps climbing. All right. So we'll go with that with our entry. So we'll go Isaiah Hartenstein higher, 11 and a half rebounds. We'll go Jalen Green lower, 17 and a half points. And then we'll go Jalen Johnson higher, 33 and a half on his PRA. That's a 6X entry. So every $10 that you do put in for the standard, if all three are correct, you'll get a return of $60. But again, if you don't have an account, make sure you guys get over there. Use that promo code NBA SGPN, 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. All right, that's going to do it here for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast, the NBA Cup Semifinal Betting Picks episode. We'll find out by Saturday night who will be playing on Tuesday in Vegas for the NBA Cup Finals for this season. So it should be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to it. But Scott, anything else you want to mention to our listeners before we get out of here?
Not really. Once again, just looking forward to the games tomorrow. Weird start time, but there are a couple bowl games. To be honest, nothing that's that I'd say nothing that's must-watch television for college football. No offense.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch the NBA, decent actual card to do so.
Yeah. The bowl games, I think the interesting ones, I should say, will kick off on next week or week after.
No offense to South Alabama and Western Michigan, but we'll be probably watching the NBA.
Yeah, we got NBA, we got college basketball as well, right? So we'll be watching hoops all day on Saturday. So definitely looking forward to it. All right, make sure you guys follow Scott over on Twitter. That's at Reichel Radio. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. If you haven't already, subscribe to the NBA Gambling Podcast YouTube channel. Please go and do so. And if you are watching live, give us a thumbs up on your way out. Just hit that like button for us on the stream. And if you are listening on the audio version, if you can just leave us a rating and review. Truly would appreciate it if you guys can do that for us. I will be back on Monday as usual to kick off the new week of NBA betting. Recap what we saw over the weekend. Believe it'll be myself and Scott again. So definitely looking forward to it. All right, we'll talk to you guys then. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.
Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna